Yo, what it is, YouTube? It's your boy Nixie coming back with another bullseye of a tutorial here today on the channel. So I want to talk about Mixbus saturation. Why do I think Mixbus saturation is essential for you to take kind of like your rough tracks over the finish line to get it sounding pro industry standard with a lot of weight, a lot of density? I feel like something like Mixbus saturation is important because music is just a bunch of sounds. It's just a bunch of words, and we're trying to get those words to speak to people, to make them feel that emotional connection, that emotional impact. And that's why I think that Mixbus saturation is so important. So let's go over it. If you guys do have any more comments or questions or concerns, go ahead and drop it down below. I'm more than happy to get to it. Let's not waste no time. Let's go ahead and play some music right now. People around me just jigging and jigging. I heard that money bring a whole lot of problems, so I hit the mark out a whole lot of Prada. Lately I really been facing the bottle, the only thing that'll help me with my problems. Shawty got the sandy cheeks with the bikini bottom. Point me to the money right now, I follow. I was down bad in the streets, had to borrow. These bitches built like some models, but crazy thing about it, they don't even got a role model. Mama told me I'm on the highway to hell in this life, so fuck it, I done hit that throttle. Hey, yeah, I done caught a whole quarter, I done put it back low, got to stay on my 10, I ain't never falling over. I done O's on the board, I done seen a lot of Florida. Been in my path and I ain't never pulling over. Toes wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10. Okay, so you guys got the main idea of this. So usually, a lot of people on YouTube, they like to talk about a bunch of stuff. That's the one thing about music. There's a low barrier of entry, which is an okay thing. But, on YouTube, a lot of people, they just bought a laptop, they bought an interface, and all of a sudden they're expert. But usually, what distinguishes somebody who's starting out from a true expert, it's not really about the equipment or the tools. It's really the mindset, how you thinking about this music stuff, right? So I'm going to talk about my mindset and how I like to apply Mixbus saturation. I'm just not going to even really go into too depth today. I'm going to actually show you guys how I do the stuff live. I really like to just do these videos where I'm just mixing and showing you guys the actual in context thing. It's kind of like a mechanic. A mechanic could go to school for 50 years and read a bunch of books on how to fix cars, but up until he takes that wrench, he pops that hood and he starts fixing stuff in the car, you're not really a real mechanic until you actually start doing the stuff. All the information don't matter if you don't apply it. So, as I'm listening to the music, I'm paying attention to like what's lacking. Okay, so when I'm listening to this, I kind of feel like the vocals should be up forward a little bit more, not necessarily volume wise, but more like the actual positioning, the more of the shape of the mid-range of the whole song. And that even applies to something like the 808 as well. I feel like the 808 and the little guitar lick, all that stuff in the mid-range is kind of like smeared, and I kind of want to tighten it up. So, when it comes to something like iPhones and stuff like that only have like mid-range energy on it, sometimes your whole mix can start to sound a little bit smaller and just kind of like not solid enough if that mid channel where the 808 is at and the vocals at isn't dense enough, if it isn't clear and intelligible enough. So I'm going to go over a couple of Mixbus saturation that I like to use, saturators I like to use, and I kind of feel like that's a solution to add a little density to that mid channel. So first thing I have is the PSP Vintage Warmer. It's crazy, like this plugin is very old. This thing is like 20 years old. Like that's crazy. I was like 4 years old when this plugin came out. So I'm going to go ahead and just play it right now. And let's look at how I like to dial in a Mixbus saturator like this, like live, just listening to it and everything. So let's go. Let's just catch a vibe. People around me just jigging and jigging. I heard that money bring a whole lot of problems, so I hit the mark out a whole lot of Prada. Lately I really been facing the bottle, the only thing that'll help me with my problems. Shawty got the sandy cheeks with the bikini bottom. Point me to the money right now, I follow. I was down bad in the streets, had to borrow. These bitches built like some models, but crazy thing about it, they don't even got a role model. Mama told me I'm on the highway to hell in this life, so fuck it, I done hit that throttle. Hey, yeah, I done caught a whole quarter, I done put it back low, got to stay on my 10, I ain't never falling over. I done O's on the board, I done seen a lot of Florida. Been in my path and I ain't never pulling over. Toes wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Who is you testing? I know that these bitches is bad, but damn, they better than ever. Who is you testing? A whole lot of people around me just jigging and jigging, finessing. Wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Who is you testing? I know that these bitches is bad, but damn, they better than ever. Who is you testing? A whole lot of people around People around me just jigging and jigging for me. I heard that money bring a whole lot of problems, so I hit the mark out a whole lot of product. Lately I really been facing the bottle, the only thing that'll help me with my problems. Shawty got to send these cheeks with the bikini bottom. Point me to the money right now, I follow. I was down bad in the streets, had to borrow. These bitches built like some models, but crazy thing about it, they don't even got a role model. Mama told me I'm on the highway to hell in this life, so fuck it, I done hit that throttle. Hey, yeah, I done caught a whole quarter, I done put it back loaded. Got to stay in my 10, I ain't never falling over. I done Zoes on the board, I done seen a lot of Florida. Been in my path and I ain't never pulling over. Toes, wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Who is you testing? I know that these bitches is bad, but damn, they better than ever. So that's kind of how I like to go about dialing in a little bit of mix saturation, Mixbus saturation live. You know, I'm bypassing things in and out because the whole thing with the saturation is like you're making the whole mix kind of like dense, you know, a little bit more solid. You hear the kick is beefing up a little bit. The 808 is beefing up. Everything is beefing up a little bit more, but it's easy to take things out of hand. So I like something like the PSP Vintage Warmer. It's kind of like an alternative for something like, you know, a lot of other saturators. I really like it a lot just because it's very easy. You know, I only play around with these three controls, or, you know, 4 controls, which is the knee, the speed, the drive, and the output. You could also even turn it into like a multi-band type of situation if you click multi, but this is just a very simple demonstration I want to show of how I like to dial in something live. So my mindset is like, okay, like what do I need to enhance? You know, because at this point I'm in my mastering brain. Like I'm no longer in my mixing brain no more. Like, you know, so that's the thing about it. It's different phases to the game and everything like that. So I just took off my mixing hat. Now I'm putting on my mastering hat. Like, okay, I'm thinking from a macro perspective. Like, how can I make the whole picture look better, you know? And I just really like this plugin because it applies a whole layer of gloss to the music. So let's listen to it one more time. Pay attention to the 808. Pay attention to the like how that has more impact. Like the whole song just has more emotional impact. And of course, you got to always be, you know, important with the way you look at the output, because sometimes the output could trick you. You could think that you're making the thing sound better, but you're over pumping it, you're over seasoning it, you're over cooking it. You know, you took the chicken, you put it in the oven, and you forgot it. You know, that can happen with saturation easy. So let's keep listening to this one real quick. People around me just jigging and jigging for me. I heard that money bring a whole lot of problems, so I hit the mark out a whole lot of product. Lately I really been facing the bottle, the only thing that'll help me with my problems. Shawty got to send these cheeks with the bikini bottom. Point me to the money right now, I follow. I was down bad in the streets, had to borrow. These bitches built like some models, but crazy thing about it, they don't even got a role model. Mama told me I'm on the highway to hell in this life, so fuck it, I done hit that throttle. Hey, yeah, I done caught a whole quarter, I done put it back loaded. Got to stay in my 10, I ain't never falling over. I done Zoes on the board, I done seen a lot of Florida. Been in my path and I ain't never pulling over. Toes, wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Who is you testing? I know that these bitches is bad, but damn, they better than ever. So I really love something like this Mixbus saturation because it can add the feel, the depth, and everything like that. So that's the thing about the depth. If you can make, you got to give the listener a point of reference. If you can make the listener know that, okay, this is what up is, they'll have a better understanding of what down is because they have a point of reference. And on top of that too, you know, sometimes you don't have to keep pushing your vocal to make it brighter. Something like this PSP Vintage Warmer, you hear that it just made the vocal brighter overall. Not because I went there and started cranking more boosting EQ or changing like the balancing of my vocal or nothing like that. I just used a saturator, some gloss on the whole mix, you know, so that's a gem, a bit of game. So the next thing I like to do is like compare it and contrast. So let's not waste no more time. Like, I'm just going to start dialing these in really quickly and look at something like the Fatso. The Fatso, that's pretty interesting because it's a hybrid between, you know, like tape, you know, tape compression, which is at the top, and some of like the regular compressors, like an 1176, a SSL bus compressor, and then the spank is like the crosstalk from an SSL console and all that stuff like that on the talk back. So let's just dial this in. Let's not talk too much. Let's listen how like, you know, we just go about comparing and contrasting everything, like just listening. And even if you don't have these plugins, that don't matter because there's other alternatives. Like these plugins I'm using all come from different plugin companies. So goddamn, just find a plugin that you got and apply the information. Lately, I've been recording some people and I noticed that their 2-track beats, like they kind of have a situation where the snare might be too loud. So sometimes you can actually use something like a saturation or like even a limiter, you know, to actually like tame like a snare, you know what I mean? So for example, like this, you have something like the Fatso where the warp circuit only starts to start at 5K. And I understand that usually like something like a snare is in that upper mid range. So not exactly like this example. I'll turn off the actual compression just so y'all can see a little bit
better. But you can use something like a saturation type of situation to actually like utility your mix, because sometimes you don't have the ability, you only got the 2-track beat, so sometimes you don't have the multi-tracks, right, to, you know, de-harsh like the snare in a rap beat. Trust me, you're gonna hear a beat one day where you're like, damn, that snare is a little too loud, a little too brash, and like when you make your vocal bright to go with it, it just makes the whole song annoying. So that's how I feel about Mixbus saturation. Always, it also gives the song some replay value as well. If you have a song that is you know, it might sound good on the first listen, but over time it makes the listener tired, they might not realize it or not, but they're not gonna play the song because it's gonna leave a displeasant feeling inside of them. Like they're gonna feel like every time they listen to your song, it hurts a little bit. So let me show you a little bit further. I'm actually gonna turn off the saturation. I'm gonna turn off the bus processing and only use the warp circuit, and just hear how you can use saturation on a 2-track beat as some game to chop down on the snare. Like you have a snare that's a little too loud. So yeah, you can also use it in a different way like that. So that's another way you can use Mixbus saturation to kind of like de-harsh the 2-track in an indirect way though, because it's like on the Mixbus and everything like that. So next thing I want to show is, you know, these ones right here, like this one is a tape saturation. I want to show a little bit of tube saturation. This is the auto-tune, you know, warmth plugin, and this is dope. You know, I think you guys should really check this out, you know. So yeah, I want to show you guys how I just go about using something like the tube. Now the tube has a different type of way that it saturates and everything like that. It really can beef up the low mid, and it can add a little bit of sparkle to the top, but that's always dependent on the source material. You know, if the source material is already too bright and you're just using overly aggressive saturator too much, it can start to hear a little bit of audible crunching or audible distortion. So it depends on it. Sometimes these plugins are modeled after the analog components that have a smoothing characteristic, but if you overdrive them, the reaction, that's going to determine if it's a good plugin or not. So let's look at this.
Who is you testing? I know that these bitches is bad, but damn, they better than ever. Who is you testing? A whole lot of people around me just jigging and jigging finesse. Who is you testing? People around me just jigging and jigging finesse. I heard that money bring a whole lot of problems, so I hit the mark out a whole lot of product. Lately, I really been facing the bottle. The only thing that'll help me with my problems. Shawty got to send these cheeks with the bikini bottom. Point me to the money right now, I follow. I was down bad in the streets, had to borrow. These bitches bill like.
So you see how when I really start to push it overly aggressive, you start to hear that flamming, like the whole mix starts to flam a little bit. So that's what I want y'all to be aware of too when it comes to like these analog plugins. Like push it a little too hard, push it a little too gritty, because some plugins can be pushed. Some of them can be irritated and bothered, you know, kind of like a little sister bothering her little brother, and then maybe they'll still be composed. But sometimes if it's a situation where, you know, the little sister is poking a little brother, he might spaz out and do some crazy shit. So that's something to also be aware about these plugins, you know, when you're starting to add all these analog plugins on top of analog plugins and you're mixing a little bit too hot, it might start to have a way of literally like flattening out your mix, killing the life, killing the human connection. So these are type of things I'm trying to have you be aware of, like your mindset in your head, you know, like this is little stuff that you might not be paying attention to, but it's important to know about, because you might pick out like a Waves BB tube or like whatever CL1B type of plugin, and you might just be hitting it too hard, like not even actually compressing it, but actually literally hitting the plugin too hard, like overcooking it, over roasting it, you know, and that's going to start to add some distortion to your mix. So on a Mixbus situation, I like to push this one subtly, so let's listen.
People around me just jigging and jigging finesse. I heard that money bring a whole lot of problems, so I hit the mark out a whole lot of product. Lately, I really been facing the bottle. The only thing that'll help me with my problems. Shawty got to send these cheeks with the bikini bottom. Point me to the money right now, I follow. I was down bad in the streets, had to borrow. These bitches built like some models, but crazy thing about it, they don't even got a role model. Mama told me I'm on the highway to hell in this life, so fuck it, I done hit that throttle. Hey, yeah, I done caught a whole quarter, I done put it back, Lord, got to stay in my 10, I ain't never falling over. I done Zoes on the board, I done seen a lot of Florida. Been in my path and I ain't never pulling over. Toes, wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Who is you testing? I know that these bitches is bad, but damn, they better than ever. Who is you testing? A whole lot of people around me just jigging and jigging finessing. Wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Who is you testing? I know that these bitches is bad, but damn, they better than ever. Who is you testing? A whole lot of people around me just jigging and jigging finessing.
So I love how this tube, what it does is kind of like takes everybody that's in the back of the classroom for the song, and it like brings everybody all the way to the back. They're like, yo, come over here, it's the party over here. So that's what I really like. It makes the ad libs even sound like, you know, it like it has a certain sound to it. That might not always work on every song, but if you wanted your ad-libs to kind of sound like they're a little bit up front, where they're actually starting to like push them level-wise, maybe you could apply a little bit of Mixbus saturation using something like a tube that's just going to help collect all like the bottom, everything on the ground and just lift the whole world up, you know, if you're mixed like that. So yeah, you know, this plugin is dope as hell. I'm not even gonna lie. You could even use it like the crunch, which is the other tube, and like you can use that as like a parallel distortion type of thingy like that. So that's cool. Maybe you might want to blend that back in with the rest of your mix. It's all up to you, you know what I mean? And after that, I like to use something as well like the Mac DSP AC202. So let's go about dialing this 1 and 2. I think the Mac DSP AC202 is a freaking gem on the Mixbus. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And that's the thing about it. When you're applying something like Mixbus compression or Mixbus saturation, bro, you need to listen to the 808. Like the 808 is the main priority. If I ever like apply like a bus compressor or a saturator, and depending on how it sounds like on the input, you know, cause like a bus compressor, like a SSLG, you know, it got an input amp inside of it, you know, like an API 2500, it got an input like, you know, circuit. All of this stuff has an input circuit that has a sound. So the compression might sound good, like the way it's moving, bumping and grooving, but it's not, it's like, damn, the saturation is killing the 808. So the 808 to me is always the main priority, because if the bass ain't moving, that's not gonna let people get into the song, you know, because the bass, the 808, it got the same frequencies as your heart. So pretty much like the 808 is like the heart of the music. So it's kind of like if you meet somebody in real life who don't got no heart, if they don't got no heart, the way they move, you're not gonna really vibe with them like that, because it's gonna be something that you just can't really feel and relate to them about. So the same thing goes with making the music. I see the music like a person. So my music gotta have heart if I want people to connect to it. That's what I think about when I'm doing the Mixbus saturation. So Mac DSP AC202, let's go.
Around me just jigging and jigging, finessing. Wherever I go, I already know to stay on my tan and stay on my toes. Wherever I go, I already know to stay on my tan and stay on my toes. Who is you testing? I know that these bitches is bad, but people around me just jigging and jigging. I heard that money bring a whole lot of problems, so I hit the mark out a whole lot of product. Lately, I really been facing the bottle. The only thing that'll help me with my problems. Shawty got to send these cheeks with the bikini bottom. Point me to the money right now, I follow. I was down bad in the streets, had to borrow. These bitches built like some models, but crazy thing about it, they don't even got a role model. Mama told me I'm on the highway to hell in this life, so fuck it, I done hear that.
So I like the Mac DSP AC202 a lot, because maybe you have a situation where the 2-track beat got way too much low end in it, and it's very convenient to have all of these things like the roll off, you know what I mean? Like the other day I had a mix too much low end on it, so all I did was bring in the Mac DSP AC202 default preset, that 30 hertz roll off. It was just so good. It helped me gain some headroom, because sometimes that 808 boom 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 hitting so hard and it's overdriving the limiter, so it's like the potential loudness of your song is going down. But that's the thing about saturation too, is actually supposed to help you get more loudness, you know, by, you know, hair clipping the whole signal. So the edges of the music ain't hitting the limiter, making it pump too hard and, you know, crunch too hard and, you know, drive too hard. So, you know, that's a good thing about hitting the Mixbus saturation. You can bring down kind of like the nominal level of the music, so you could limit even harder to make your music sound even louder, even bigger. Like, whoa, like who is that rapping? And some more incredible controls is like, these are all different types of tape machines, and you hear like as I'm scrolling through all these different types of tape machines, they all add in like different saturation curves that is really just like changing the 808. So that's why I said like the 808 is always the main priority when it comes to applying Mixbus compression or processing. Like nobody ever talks about that, but it's good to, you know, bring it up. So then you have like the biasing too, and biasing is pretty important, because with the bias, you know, if you over bias, you can make your whole song sound darker. Kind of like if you have a mix that's just too bright, rather than trying to be like, okay, I got to go back and re-EQ everything, just apply some Mixbus saturation and, you know, maybe use something like the AC202 or whatever type of tape and do a little bit of over biasing, you know, to just mellow out the whole music. So, you know, this is also a mindset that I like to think, like, as I'm picking all these saturators or whatever, I don't usually do it all like this. I kind of know which one that I want to use already, but, you know, maybe sometimes you want to audition them, you know, you might want to have them set up in your template, pop them inside it out and be like, you know, like, is this helping my song get a little bit more oomph, a little bit more sound like to the final product? Is it helping me hear my reverb, my delays? Is it helping everything just sit back in formation, like with the music? Because, you know, when you're making music like this, it's kind of tough because you only got the 2-track beat. So you can only control your vocal. You can't control the actual music. But usually the secret to getting a 2-track beat is to picking the best 2-track beat that's actually mixed. So by the time you're doing all this stuff, it's like you're just only enhancing it. You know, you're not trying to make it sound good. So that's the thing about it too. You know, you also have the release time, which is like kind of affecting the saturation curve. You know, I see this this release time similar to the PSP Vintage Oldtimer, where it has the knee. Yeah, you know, so the knee is kind of like the transition of the saturation and everything like that. Do you want it to be like abrupt or very you know, smooth and lenient? So, you know, that's very important to know about too. Then we have the different tape types, you know, like 7.5, that's the darkest, 15 is neutral, 30 is, you know, it depends on how you want to go about doing this stuff. But I just want to show you a bunch of different type of Mixbus saturators, you know what I mean? And you know, after that, you have something like the True Iron. And the last one is the True Iron, which is the transformer. So I showed you guys the tape, the tubes, and I'm about to show you the transformer. And, you know, this is going to be a lesson right here on, you know, when knowing that something isn't good, when something isn't working. So before I even open something like this up, I already know what I want, which is like I want my bass to be a little bit more dense, my vocal to be a little bit more forward. And you know, let's see if this thing can even, you know, give me that, you know, because not every plugin is good for the job. You know what I mean? Not every tool can bang a nail into the wall. You know what I mean? So let's check that too.
People around me just jigging and jigging. I heard that money bring a whole lot of problems, so I hit the mark out a whole lot of product. Lately, I really been facing the bottle. The only thing that'll help me with my problems. Shawty got the sandy cheeks with the bikini bottom. Point me to the money right now, I follow. I was down bad in the streets, had to borrow. These bitches built like some models, but crazy thing about it, they don't even got a role model. Mama told me I'm on the highway to hell in this life, so fuck it, I done hit that throttle. Hey, yeah, I done caught a whole quarter, I done put it back loaded. Got to stay in my 10, I ain't never falling over. I done Zoes on the board, I done seen a lot of Florida. Been in my path and I ain't never pulling over. Toes, wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Who is you testing? I know that these bitches.
See, now this is a situation where a saturator wouldn't work because, first of all, it's not even brightening up the top end, which is kind of what I wanted to. That's why the PSP Vintage Warmer was working the best because, you know, it's giving me some of that brightness in my vocals, bringing my vocal up forward. But with this True Iron, it kind of sounds too dark. It sounds too murky, too muddy. So sometimes you might want a sound like that. You know, some people, they use True Iron on their Mixbus and they have great results. But on a song like this, what I always say is that it goes based on song by song by song, you know what I mean? What works and what doesn't. So sometimes when you're mixing, there's a time to say yes, and there's also a time to say no. And that's what I really wanted to show you guys with this whole video that I'm doing, you know, like Mixbus saturation, it's a great tool, but just like anything in audio, if you don't use it properly, you won't get the benefits of it. Just because it worked wonders for somebody else doesn't necessarily mean it will work for you or work even on that individual song, because you have individual needs and your song has its own, you know, needs. You know, the music will kind of tell you what it needs. Like as soon as I listen to my vocal in the whole rough mix, I kind of knew, okay, I need my vocal to come a little bit more forward. I need the bass to hit a little harder. How can I do that? How can I get all the benefits without any of the negatives? And I feel like in a situation like this, the PSP Vintage Oldtimer won, and we'll run that back one more time.
People around me just jigging and jigging. I heard that money bring a whole lot of problems, so I hit the mark out a whole lot of product. Lately, I really been facing the bottle. The only thing that'll help me with my problems. Shawty got the sandy cheeks with the bikini bottom. Point me to the money right now, I follow. I was down bad in the streets, had to borrow. These bitches built like some models, but crazy thing about it, they don't even got a role model. Mama told me I'm on the highway to hell in this life, so fuck it, I done hit that throttle. Hey, yeah, I done caught a whole quarter, I done put it back loaded. Got to stay in my 10, I ain't never falling over. I done Zoes on the board, I done seen a lot of Florida. Been in my path and I ain't never pulling over. Toes, wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10 and stay on my toes. Wherever I go, I already know to stay on my 10.
So that's what I really liked here. The PSP Vintage Warmer. You guys should probably demo this plugin. It's amazing. And you just hear how I declogged the mid-range. It really declogged the mid-range, and that's what we were kind of looking for since the very beginning, you know, kind of helping the whole mix image better. Everything sounds solid, a little bit better in its place and everything like that. You hear the 808, you hear the beat. It doesn't sound like a big jumbled mess. So that's kind of like this video I wanted to do, just my overall mindset, how to think. It's easy to tell somebody what to do, but it's not easy to tell them what to think. And that's what I was trying to get at this video. So I just want to say thanks a lot for being a great part of my YouTube family. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.